Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Studio Insights, a podcast brought to you by Provost Studio. I'm your host, Tyler Kern. Thanks so much for joining me here today. Today, we're talking about 10 years of Provost Studio. How about that? 10 whole years. So we're going to look back at the past. We're also going to look ahead to the future and talk about the current state of things right now as well with Peter Provost, the president of Provost Studio. Peter, welcome to another episode. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm well. Can you believe it? 10 years.
Nope.
How quickly have those 10 years just flown by?
Uh, Very quickly. When I think about it, it's hard. I don't know if I've done anything aside from being married for almost 20 years. I don't know if I've ever done anything for 10 years. Um, but no, it's been awesome. It's been like a very emotional roller coaster. And I'm super grateful. I think gratitude is probably the buzzword. If I could say anything, I'm like just glad that we're at this point, but I'm also super grateful for all of the great people that work with us, work for us, our clients. I know that sounds cliche, but it's totally true. We're only as good as the people that you have surrounding, the organization and the project. So,
Hmm. So when you look back to 10 years ago, what was the thing that kind of pushed you forward into starting your own company in the first place? Why start a Provo studio?
um, hmm, I think that as I think every architect dreams of doing something someday, right? But to be honest, I think that for me, I kind of it was out of necessity, really, and I mean that in a not a bad way, but I think I was at a point in my career where I had worked with super talented people, super talented firms, and I really wanted to, take a shot on my own. And I had an opportunity to um, work with some clients from a previous organization that I was at. Left on very good terms, gracious people there, and just started to build from like block to block to block. And one of the first actually large projects that we got, which was probably maybe 12 months after we started, was our first international project, and it was for a news organization in the Republic of Georgia, former Soviet state, and it was in Tbilisi. It was an amazing project. Not only was it kind of a large project, we did the broadcast studio and the office headquarters from kind of ground up. But culturally, it was an amazing experience, and that to a certain extent was kind of the springboard of the practice that kind of created a legitimate practice out of otherwise kind of like a freelancing, a freelancing workflow.
That's really interesting, and just kind of, I guess, from there forming what is now Provo Studio. How have things maybe evolved over the last 10 years and grown? Has it? I suppose a better question might be: have things grown how you expected them to, or has it looked different than maybe what your expectations were?
Yeah, definitely different. Although I have to say that I think when you start a practice, you're only as good as your last job and your your relationship with the client. So I think I kind of feel like we're just starting, to be honest. Some days I feel like we've been around for 10 years. Other days I feel like we've been around for 2 months. Um, but we definitely have matured. We've got systems in place that we haven't had before, running into this next 10 years, whether it's, marketing system, financial system, legal systems, which is contracts, administration, talent, all of that is now kind of in place in a way that it hadn't been. And I think that just the practice is this combination of interior architecture, branded environments, and this digital media practice, which is broadcast. And in a way, and we've talked about this before, um, 20 years ago, they were like, one was here, one was here. 10 years ago, they got a little bit closer, and now they're really kind of intertwined in really exciting ways. And so, um, it's I don't want to say right time, right place. It's just that technology and how companies are approaching their spaces and headquarters and marketing is all evolving in a way that aligns with kind of what our expertise are. So
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things we were talking about before we hit record on this episode was actually just the way that building relationships and getting kind of word of mouth referrals is the best way of getting new business for you. How does it compare now to those early years when obviously you came in maybe with some people that you'd worked with in the past and some previously happy clients that would be willing to vouch for you, to other people. But how is it compared now that you've done so many of these projects and constantly have more and more on your plate?
I think it's evolved, I guess, in a way that it's should, right? Theoretically, the more work that you do and the more um, clients that are happy with the work that you do and are seeing successes with the work that you do are happy to kind of pass your name along. I think that if you had asked me 10 years ago, do you think it will take as long as it has to start what I say, the marketing flywheel going, where you're getting calls from, prospective clients that you hadn't anticipated? I would have said no. I mean, there's no way it would take 10 years. I thought, a couple years, and even, a couple years, yes, some people were passing our name along, but it wasn't kind of consistent. And I think the most important thing, especially for professional services, is your reputation. And I think that once you establish that reputation in the marketplace, yes, there's always going to be competition, right? Yes, there's always going to be peer organizations or peer firms that appear similar to you from a client perspective, but really it's about solidifying in a genuine way how you can help people, and that's really like that's kind of what we do. And I think that even through the detriment sometimes of the firm, it's really important for us and for me to tell the client what they should know, not necessarily what they want to hear. And sometimes that works in our favor, sometimes it doesn't. But the one thing that I have realized in the 10 years that we've been doing this is that while, yes, we can help a lot of clients, we're not necessarily always the best firm to do it, right? We're not always necessarily the best fit for clients. And it's taken 10 years for us to be able to say, or me to be able to say, look, maybe we're not the best firm for you. Maybe we're not the best fit, but here's a firm that may be a better fit and may be able to serve you maybe in a better or a different way than what your expectations are. So
That's a really good point, and I think that honesty and that ability to have those types of conversations with clients is huge, because even in the long run, like if they don't end up choosing to work with you, that honesty I think still goes a long way and still can benefit you in the long run in terms of how people perceive you and the desire to work with you in the future. If I know that you're going to tell me the truth, regardless, then I'm gonna appreciate that. And maybe that's just me, but I would assume that it would be like that for a lot of people.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've had conversations um, with prospective clients that uh, it just wasn't, again, for one reason or another, it wasn't a good fit, but we gave them the resources or referrals um, to continue to develop their project without us. And I think that all of that kind of eventually, I mean, it's a small industry. It all eventually, comes back, as it were, in a good way. So yeah, I feel again, I feel super like grateful and super pumped for the next 10 years. So.
What sorts of governing principles or guiding values do you feel like really are the hallmarks of Provost Studio that have helped you achieve what you have achieved?
Well, yeah, you and I were talking about this. So I mean, design excellence, right? And we're design practice. I'm totally passionate about design, and not design just for design's sake, but design as a change agent, design as a way to communicate, right, in ways that clients haven't prior to engaging us. So design excellence is absolutely critical. But I think also the understanding of having a close relationship with the client, right? In terms of feeling like making sure that the client feels like you're advocating for them. Uh, Again, whether it's part of what you can do for them or not is super important. And then just making sure that we're delivering, you know, excellent service. And what I mean by that is, being part of design practices for most of my career, whether it's been as an architect or as an interior architect or as a scenic designer, um, I always thought 20 years ago when I just got out of grad school and college, that like design and service were like mutually exclusive, right? That you could either, as an organization, be a design firm or a service firm. And I think what I found is, and this may be like not a groundbreaking revelation to anybody, but you can have both, right? It's not either or. And so I think that in a very genuine way, we're passionate and experts at what we do. We'll tell the client kind of what they should hear, not necessarily all the time what they want to hear, and just do the best we can in terms of making sure that everybody is happy with the work that we do. And I don't know. That's our approach. It's kind of simple, but we do like to have fun. So if clients don't want to have fun and want to talk about how to express what they have to say in really interesting and different and authentic ways, then we're probably not a good fit. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's well put. I think it's in the excellent sitcom Brooklyn Nine-Nine where the main character says things can be two things, and I think we often forget that. You can be great at service and great at design, right? Things can be two things. You can be good at things, and that's okay.
I think, yeah. I mean, yeah. Not to be to not to comment on the current state of affairs relative to whether it's politics or whatever, but I don't think that everything has to be polarized, right? I don't think it's a this or that. I think, again, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Things can live in parallel with one another, and I think that that's kind of one of the most important things. Even like in our approach to design, right? Uh, one might say, well, as a designer, we had all of these client driven needs and mandatories and all of these constrictions or restrictions on what we could do as design solutions. And I would say for our process, I think our process gets better the more that clients are engaged and you know the more ingredients that they put into the bowl as we're cooking, right? It's a bad analogy, but I think that I think projects become more successful the more that clients get involved, not less.
Yeah, yeah. I like the way you put that. Things are better the more often they're involved, which is I think a really good point. One of the other things I wanted to touch on was just the way that demand for studios and for the projects that you do has really risen over the last several years. Now, obviously, pandemic couldn't have predicted that necessarily, and you mentioned earlier, may have been some element of right time, right place sort of thing, but you've really seen demand for the kinds of things you do go through the roof, which I mean has to be fun and cool to see when you have your own business and when you have a company like doing the things that you do.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. I mean, pre-pandemic, things were starting to kind of trend up in terms of whether it's inquiries or, sold work. The pandemic, everything kind of froze. Not kind of, everything froze. Um, and starting last year, things became unfroze, and to a certain extent, organizations were kind of hitting the gas, right, on trying to get things completed and getting things started back up again. I think that we're seeing some of that, pent up buying, um, opportunities from clients in terms of wanting to greenlight projects. But I do think that just like as an example, clients are using the spaces that otherwise would just be for video, but they're using them for remote meetings and events, which is a direct result of the pandemic, right? So some of the spaces that we're designing that pre pandemic would have been just for marketing and communications. Now they're, event spaces, right? Now they're, the C-suite wants to, make regular addresses. And those spaces now are, I think, doing double, triple duty where previous, even 3 years, 4 years ago, they weren't doing that. So.
Was there a period of time when things were stuck that you sat back and thought to yourself like, what if things stay stuck for 5 years, or that sort of thing? Obviously, now that we're on the other side of this, it's much easier to look back and say, oh, I was not that troubled. We knew things would kind of come back to normal at a certain point. But was there ever a point where you thought, yeah, what if things don't go back to normal?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, my wife and I, we have got 4 kids, so yes, we're like, "What are we gonna be doing? We're gonna pitch a tent out back. How's this gonna work? How's this gonna play out?" I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of felt like it was a pause more than, a break, so that's good. I think some of our, international work has paused, or I won't say break, but has taken a long-term pause. But our work here in the U.S., in the Fortune 500 clients that we're working with, have have just skyrocketed. So
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good perspective, and that's obviously been over the last couple of years. So now, as you hit 10 years and you look forward, what do you think about the next 10 years? What sorts of goals do you have? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to see happen now in the future?
so 20 years ago, when I started working in broadcast, it was very architecture, interiors were here, broadcast was here, and broadcast mainly was commercial broadcast stations. Today, fast forward 20 years, um, on the corporate side, we're working with organizations to do things that I hadn't thought about relative to reaching out to audiences, specific audiences. So what's like super cool is like we've worked with college universities, right? University of Alabama, and developing like custom learning studios, right? We're working with some medical hospital organizations where the studios are going to be used for like training and for surgery and for um, educating doctors in terms of how a procedure happens, or quite frankly, that project in particular is also going to have like a part of the studio where they talk directly to patients on what they can expect, whether it's what they can expect going to the hospital or having a procedure for recovery. So whether it's education, whether it's medical, what's another interesting, financial services, that's kind of a really kind of an interesting opportunity as well, kind of helping people learn more about finance and how they can plan for the future. So I think over the past 10 years, I've seen uh, broadcast as a project type in terms of like the kind of audiences typically that broadcast reach, meaning like somebody that turns on the TV at night and that's what you see. Again, super amazing opportunity, but now it's much more like customized. It's much more like nuanced in terms of how you're helping that organization craft how you see their content in really like cool, rewarding ways, right? I know you and I, after before this call, we were talking about the one call that we just recently got, which I can't really say right now, but like, who would have known that these types of organizations are trying to reach out to their audiences in a very direct way through video, right? So, I mean, that I'm excited to see how it's going to evolve, I guess. I want to do the first broadcast studio in space. How about that? That'd be awesome.
We'll get you in with Elon or with with Bezos or something like that. Get you up there and building a studio in space or something like that. I don't know. Sounds awesome. Sounds awesome. Well, how do you have any plans to celebrate? Like, how are you celebrating this? You have like a bottle of champagne under your desk right there, or what are you doing?
No, no. You know what? I don't know what we're gonna do. I think, well, the first thing that we're gonna do is this summer is probably have a little party for the team. Um, and I don't, yeah, I don't know. We should come up with something really, really interesting, but I don't know. Nothing huge. Um, I'm gonna get a tattoo with a 10 on it, like right there.
A big 10 or a big X? Are you gonna go Roman numerals?
Oh, yeah, no, I think 10. I think 10.
Okay. And then in 10 more years, you can cross out the 10 and then put a 20 and just kind of keep going down the arm.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. We could do 2x, right?
Oh yeah, see that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. It's an idea. Just think about it. Think about it. I'll be your tattoo consultation.
I'll think about it. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, Peter, congratulations on 10 fantastic years with Provost Studio, and here's to hopefully many more tens of excellent years.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for everybody maybe listening, hopefully.
Listening, hopefully celebrating along with you, referring more people, all of those things. Yeah, we appreciate everyone out there in the audience. Of course, if you're new to Provost Studio and you don't know what they're about and some of the background and some of the projects that they've done and that sort of thing, you can head to provo-studio.com to see examples of other projects, to learn more about Peter and the team there, and of course check out other episodes of the podcast and other examples of their work. You can head to provo-studio.com for more. And of course, for more episodes, you can go subscribe to Studio Insights on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts these days. You can listen to the previous episodes we have where we talk about specific topics like lighting or set design, different things like that, to help you understand a little bit more about what goes into the creation of some of these studios, like what we've talked about today. So go check out those podcasts as well. Peter, thanks for joining me for another episode, man.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure. And everyone, thank you for tuning into another episode. For Peter Prevost, I'm Tyler Kern. We'll talk to you again soon.